Oh well guys, a bit of bad luck today out here flying the drone. Came down somewhere here. I didn't take notice of the instructions on it. I bought one of those DJI's drones, and it did say give it 30% power reserve in the battery, and I never took any notice and flew it out here and never made it back to base and dropped. Actually there it is there. Oh, geez, that was close. Almost on a barbed wire fence. Now that's that. I think the propellers are all up. Got out of this one okay. Anyway, this I was going to show you how well this drone flies, but didn't fly too well because it ran. I've only got the one battery with it and ran out of gas. And I was just looking over there in the scrub there, and that's a bit unusual for a farmer guy to put all those pieces of timber just up around a stump he's belted over, and it looks like he's going to burn it out. We'll go around and have a bit of closer look at it. What surprises me about some of these people who try to burn out stumps, it's not a really easy job. It can take three or more days. Like I'm basing this on experience in a wood paddock, like going back 10 years ago. I had, no, it was more than that. Roughly 20 years ago I had 10 years in a wood paddock, and it was no picnic out there, and the woods we were cutting at that stages were mainly white box, yellow box, sometimes iron bark, but very rarely that one. But I suppose over the years I had in the paddock, 10 years, I had an 056 chainsaw in a still, I had an 084, that's a really big one, 122 cc's, and it could sort of really mow through the big stuff. But I think I cut down hundreds of trees, and but we are talking 20 or 30 years ago. We don't cut trees down now as far as I'm aware of, but I don't get out with a chainsaw to find out. But as far as that goes, it was a totally different time then, and you know, you went out, cut the trees down, sold the wood, and that's what I did, and used to get 80 bucks a tonne, where now I think it's $240 a square metre or cubic metre or whatever it is, so it's pretty pricey now. So when we look at cutting down trees, like some of the paddocks I did the cutting on, I was on one particular spot there for 3 years, and you know, that's a lot of timber. I moved out of that place, and usually with the people that I dealt with, and it was all sort of a thick scrubby place like this, like what we're looking around here now. We dealt with two sorts of farmers that owned the property. In those days, one hit you with $10 a tonne and just clean up your mess and throw your sticks up against the stump. And the other blokes, which I really didn't like much, but had not much choice, they give you a choice of, you can take the wood for free, but you've got to burn out the stumps. Now, I tell you what, it's no picnic burning out stumps, and that photo I just showed you there, what I zoomed in on the paddock and got that picture of the stump there with the twigs around it, I can tell you for a fact now, that would probably just singe that box tree, because white box trees are very hard to burn out. And that's how I used to do it when I first hit into the paddock, but after a while you learn secrets how to burn out a tree stump properly. Takes a while, and then after you get onto it, it's good, because the reason why you've got to come up with some good idea, sometimes you might have to get out there and burn out 30 stumps, so it's a big job. Well, this here, there's a few rabbits in this area too. So if you're thinking this is a motorcycle video or something like that, well, it was going to be a remote control video on the on the new quadcopter I bought, but as it is now, it looks like it turns out how to burn out a tree stump. So you've got two different sorts in the stumps, and I'll swing over and find one out here while I'm rigging around this fence and check her out over there. Okay guys, this is a perfect example of a huge stump if you wanted to burn it out. So first thing you would do would be, it's already hollow in the centre, so you don't even have to put any cut marks in this one. You would just use, like I did in the old days, little lucifer fire starters down the guts of it here, or twigs and that to build up on the fire itself. Because it's hollowed out in the centre, it'll gradually burn away with a slight breeze. Now, around the base of the tree, when nobody else takes any notice of, you would dig this right out and maybe dig it a foot deep down in there, so that once it starts burning from the top to the bottom, it just doesn't get to ground level. And after that, it's no use to anyone, and it just burns its way out. If you dig deeper, and this is what we found out from experience from cutting down hundreds of trees in the paddock and burning huge amount of stumps, that if you dig around these first, right out around it, so the fire can continue and burn right down below root level or ground level, you'll get a much better burn and you'll get rid of this stump. Okay guys, this is stump number 2. This is usually how you find them in the paddock, with white box, just a very small hole in the centre, and sometimes none at all. A really good solid stump, pretty big, so if you look at the foot next to it, I suppose it'd be 25, 28 inches across, something like that, that stump. So it's a pretty good one. So this is how I'd go about burning out this stump. Okay, first off, with the old chainsaw, I'd run 3 cuts right through the guts of it there. I'd bring them down, say about 8 or 10 inches into the log of the stump. So bring it down to here. I'd come back up and then run 2 across. One there. They'll find something here, this one will do. One something like that. So that's how I do it across. So you'd have 3 going across, 2 the other way, and the reason for that is, depending on which way the wind's blowing, the wind will be able to get into this stump and get things going. Because like I said, they're not easy to do. So what I'd do then would be, once we put all the vertical and the other cuts in it, horizontal type ones, like we get to the centre here, what I do here, I would knock this piece out with a axe or a blockbuster and try to just put an indentation into the wood there itself. So that's the first part of that, and probably go down, you don't have to go down 3 or 4 inches, that'd be good enough. Next up, I'd use a bit of diesel. And just pour down the hole, and also pour diesel into the crack areas here, just to soak into it. And then in here I'd put a 1 or 2 what they used to call in those days little lucifer fire starters, and I don't know, they probably still make them now. I haven't used them for years because I haven't got a wood stove. But I'd buy you know, a packet of those, come out, drop a couple of them down that slot, then put a little bit of kindling on it, like pieces off the tree and stuff like that, because you need something to get things going, and that's how it'd be set up the top. Now a stump like this could, if you weren't careful, it could swallow half a tonne of wood or something like that, so there goes 40 bucks of your profit just burning the stump out, or it could take more, it just depends. So the idea, after you did the cuts up the top, set your fire starters up there ready to go with the kindling on top, right around the base of this tree here, you would dig it out totally, right around. And the reason you do that is, when the stump starts burning, it comes down to ground level, it'll continue on then below ground level and burn out the stump. And that's what you're chasing. You're not just trying to burn the top bit off, you're burning it right through. Now more importantly, after you get this under control and you've dug right out around the outside, dug it down probably 10 inches to a foot below ground level, the most important thing is you do not light this fire if you know it's got a raid on the first night of when you want really a lot of damage to be done in the burning. So you've really got to check to see the weather's going to be good, and if the weather's good, go ahead, light her up. If it looks like it's going to be rain in the next day or two, forget about it, because if the rain puts it out, you've got to come back, you've got to trim all the burnt charcoal and all that around the thing, and then start from scratch again. Now if all goes well and you follow these simple rules, like I said, the say 5 cut marks in the top of it, chip the middle of it out, put a fire lighter or 2 in the centre, use the kindling to build it up and throw a bit of sump oil, or if you don't want to use sump oil you can use diesel. I suppose you could use petrol if you want to, but diesel is a lot safer to use. You could probably knock this stump out of a burnout within 2 days, I'd say, something like that, depending on how dry the wood is and if you have any drama with it on the burnout. But with these solid base ones you have really got to chip it out. Those ones that have got a little hollow in the centre, like it makes it a lot different, and you can burn those out a bit quicker. But following this idea you can get it out of the way, because it's been proven time and time again in the paddock, like over hundreds of logs or hundreds of stumps sitting in there, that you can burn them out and it'll burn them out thoroughly. Now if you look over on the far side of this stump, if you just concentrated on throwing a few twigs around it or pieces of wood and it's clear all this side, and you get around to here, it's just going to burn right up against this high point here and nothing's going to happen. It'll be just a total waste of time. So keep that in mind. You have to clear right around the stump to get a good job. And even here in Oz, in case you're wondering, you ever wonder why you're right along, you look in the paddock and there's a lot of stumps sitting up about 1 metre high, and you'd think to yourself, well, when they cut those trees down, why didn't they cut them off at ground level or just 6 inches off the ground? Well, that's a pretty simple one to answer. The reason why the farmers want you to have it 1 metre or so off the ground when they cut stumps is simply because not always the paddocks are bare, and when they have a good winter the grass grows quick. The grass can go 3 or 4 foot high, at least if you've got the stumps at 1 metre or something around that standard. If he's riding his motorbike or 4-wheel drive or ATV bike through the paddocks, he knows then he's got an idea to look out for stumps. But if they're only sitting up 6 inches to a foot and they're totally covered in grass, you could say he's RS if he comes along and hits one of those and tears the arse out of his transmission of the bike or anything else, or throws himself off the bike. And like what we did learn over the years of 10 years in a wood paddock, what if you want to stay in the properties, if you don't follow their rules, you're not there for very long. Now here's a perfect example of one of those stumps. We'll just zoom in a bit. And when you take a good look at that one, he could have took 2 more blocks of wood off that one, but no. I would say once again, and if you look back through into here, there's a couple in there. They're all sitting up high where, you know, if you were sort of hungry for wood, you'd come in there and cut them ground level or near the ground, but that's where you get that trouble that I mentioned earlier. So you can see now where it sits up like that. There's a couple more blocks of wood sitting on there, which probably would have been 50 or 100 pound of wood or something like that. But I would say when they did it, he's up around that 1 metre mark, cut her over, and that was the end of that, but the stump's still there. Here's another example. Once again, good metre off the ground. Anyway guys, thanks very much for tuning in and taking a look at this. These yellow box trees and the white box trees are the best burning fuel in Australia, and when you talk about white box, they're the hardest fuel to ignite, and but they do burn the hottest and the longest. So as far as that goes, really good fuel, providing it's dry. Also take into account, if you follow those tips I mentioned, it won't matter what tree you're going to do, it'll all burn the same, provided you've dry and you've got the backup timber to keep things going. So once you start your fire, keep at it, and more importantly, don't get out there and set your stump alight when you know it's going to rain that night or the night after. Check your weather reports first. Do those simple tips I told you like that, and I'm pretty sure that you'll burn out the stump with no drama whatsoever. And not only will you just burn out on the top, it'll burn right down below the ground and burn itself out totally. So that's what you're chasing, and that idea will work providing you follow those few simple instructions I mentioned, and more importantly, make sure you dig out around the base of the tree, because you've got to have a clear run of the fire to go into the sides of the banks there and something like that. So the way to eliminate that is dig right around the base of your tree, and that will save you a problem there. So once again, thanks very much for tuning in.